Okay, everybody. Time is now 7 o'clock. I'd like to call this session of the Bridgewater Town Council meeting to order. Can we all please stand for a salute to the flag? Well, welcome everybody. Thank you all for coming tonight. It's obviously a special meeting because we've got some recent developments and changes that have gone on in regards to the town manager. And I'm sure, as all of you know, the town manager has accepted a position with Barnstable County, and so obviously leading us in need of a town manager here. So tonight's meeting is definitely the first step in discussing the steps for the council to take to find a replacement for Mr. Dutton. So it's a very short agenda. It's the basic thing that we're talking about tonight is the process that we want to go through. But we will call the meeting to order and remind everyone that this meeting is being aired live and recorded. Before we get to citizen comments, because we will have those in just a moment, I believe a council member had something he wanted to have a personal privilege on.
Thank you. I just wanted to let the residents of Bridgewater know that we have the best fire department, EMS, and police force in the country. Today, on my way home at about 2:15, I had someone almost hit me head on, spun my car around, and totaled it. So I'm here. I'm okay, a little shaky, so if I get shaky tonight, you'll have to understand. This is an important meeting. I didn't want to miss it, but you just got to thank God every day, but also thank the men and women of our EMS, fire and police department. So.
Thank you, Mr. Lindy, and glad to hear that you're okay. All right, so we will get to citizen comments, and just to remind everyone, due to Mass Open Meeting Law requirements, discussions will not take place during public comment periods. If appropriate, responses to questions and concerns will be given by the town manager at a future town council meeting. So at this point, I'll certainly will open up the floor if anyone would like to come on up and give their name and address and speak your mind. Remember, please keep it to 3 minutes if we have a lot of people who want to comment here tonight. Yes, Ms. Strigos.
Just before we get started, can we just make sure that everyone truly enunciates who they are and their address tonight, just so we can definitely keep track of people that are in our districts or anything like that, so we can do any follow-up that we need to.
Thank you, Ms. Riggles. That sounds great. So again, please announce clearly and, again, name and address. Again, we're going to keep it to 3 minutes. I'm going to give you a little 5-second warning if you're getting close. Again, if a lot of people want to speak tonight, I want to give everyone a fair turn to speak. So please keep your comments concise, and we'll start. Mr. Ivaldi's coming up. Please come on up.
Good evening, Ed Ivaldi, Boxwood Lane. On April 24th, 2010, the voters of Bridgewater approved a new council manager form of government, with the goal being to create a more professional management structure for our town. Like any other municipality, thousands of decisions are made every day in cities, towns, and counties across our nation that determine the quality of our lives. Professional managers craft the plans and make the decisions that transform good communities into great ones. Selecting a chief administrator is perhaps the most important decision that local elected officials will make for their communities. Since 2010, we've had 2 town managers, Troy Clarkson for 2 years and Mike Dutton for 12. Each of them brought different qualifications, experiences, and perspectives to the job. However, the one thing in common that I believe neither one of them had when they accepted the job was experience leading under a council manager form of government. While a lot has changed in 14 years, the basic process for selecting a town manager has remained consistent. It still requires careful planning, astute evaluation of candidates, and a clear understanding of the relationship between the council and the town manager. As you begin the recruitment process for a new town manager, both interim and permanent, I believe it is critical that you address the following as priorities. First, you need to form a search committee. I strongly believe that this committee should include representation from the public, from the employee base, and the council. Ideally, the number of members should not exceed 7. Perhaps 3 citizens, 2 employees, and maybe 2 council members might be a good place to start. Engaging citizens and employees in the search will help the community feel more engaged and more connected in the process. Second, you need to consider options for conducting the recruitment, which may include conducting the recruitment in-house, retaining an outside party to conduct the recruitment, or using a hybrid approach by conducting the recruitment in-house with help from an outside party. And third, you need to develop a candidate profile. The most significant decision point for the council in the recruitment of a new town manager is to define what you're looking for. The profile will encompass those qualities, characteristics, experience, and areas of expertise that would be found in an ideal candidate. From my perspective, it is critical that the candidate we select have experience working in the council manager form of government. Lastly, although it would be ideal if our new town manager be a Bridgewater resident, we may not be able to find a local individual that meets the profile that you select. Therefore, I suggest we conduct a nationwide search utilizing organizations such as the MMA and the ICMA to aid in identifying potential candidates. I believe we're currently members of both organizations, so engaging them should be relatively easy to do. Throughout the entire process, clear communication to the employees and community is essential for achieving council goals. In the end, the process of recruiting and selecting our next town manager should be a positive and unifying experience, resulting in the appointment of an individual who represents and embodies Bridgewater's vision for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Appreciate that. Anybody else like to come up and speak? Well, please come on up and then, yeah.
Well, all I wanted to say was that you want us to...
Hold on a second. Just start with your name and address, and then Shania.
25 Trailwood Drive. I just want to mention that you want us to introduce ourselves, so you guys are all sitting there with your signs. I can't see half of them. I would like for all of you to introduce yourselves so I know in which area you represent.
Well, again, that's not typical procedure. We have all our name tags that basically lists where we are, so if you can't see them,
But well, when you're speaking, you could just say it, while instead of just coming out and talking, you could say, I am so-and-so.
right, we'll have the counselors, when we get to our discussion, we'll announce ourselves as we go along, if that helps you out. Not a problem. Anybody else like to come up and speak?
No one minds? All right, I'll try. Hello, folks. Tim Fitzgibbon, South Drive. I've been through this process. I hired the interim town manager after Mr. Clarkson left, Mr. Kerbel, and then I hired Mr. Dutton. When he came along, I'm not going to tell you guys what to do. It's your responsibility. It's your job to do that for the town. But what I will say is I'm available for anyone on the council to call and have suggestions or just a discussion about anything about. I think what's really been great in the last several years, and I thank Mr. Ivaldi for pushing the charter so hard back in those days, was how much we've accomplished financially since that time. We came in to the charter, the council manager form of government with negative free cash, and we're generating free cash every year. And that's very important for the future of Bridgewater as a town. And the other thing I'd like to just suggest is we need to keep the search as close as possible to the vest, because there are going to be many good people who may be very interested in this job, because, to be honest, there's not a lot of places where a town manager lasted for 12 years. That's a very good sign of the health of the relationship between the council and the manager, and they will be interested in it. However, they may have very good jobs themselves and not want it to be known that they are out looking around, perhaps for an even better job here in our town, which I think it is. So however you create that process, until you get to the finalists, please keep it very confidential as to who's applied. And you know, I wish you guys all very well. You guys, most of you have my number. If you don't, reach out to a friend of yours on the council who probably does. And I'm willing to be there for you whenever you need. So good luck on the search, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzgibbons.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Sam, come on up.
Sam Baumgarten, 60 Short Street. First of all, thank you for holding this meeting and giving the citizens a chance to speak up on the forthcoming search. I want to take a bit of a tangent onto the issues of transparency and publicity. I knew about this meeting because I saw a posting on Bridgewater 02324 that I think Mr. Murphy put up. I saw a posting from Councilor Robinson, and then I saw it kind of wiggle its way around through Facebook and stuff. But my point is that the publicity probably isn't great, wasn't great. And I want to know why something like this is not put up right front and center on the town's website. When you open up the town's, thank you. When you open up the town page, it says latest news. This isn't up there. There are often things that could be up there that aren't up there. So you have to do a bit of searching. And again, unless you randomly go around Facebook, a lot of people would just never know about this. But the town website should be priority, and the town's Facebook page should be priority. It wasn't up there. And last week, as you know, we couldn't even tune into the council meeting because of technical glitches. So I'm concerned about how are you going to keep publicity out there on this search for everybody. And then tacking back a little bit with regard to the assistant town manager and transparency and publicity. I asked a question of Mr. Dutton about 3 weeks ago, what happened to our assistant town manager? And he said that she was leaving the state, but that she had been kept on to work remotely for a while, and then she stayed on to deal with some litigation. And he said to me that already that there's been someone hired to fill her position as an interim. Blythe Robinson is her name. And I emailed back to him and I said, when was this announced? Did anybody ever know that the assistant town manager had left the state and was no longer working at this point for the town? And who was the replacement? How was that announced? How was the salary determined? Kim's salary is listed on the town budget as $165,000. Who's getting paid that now, or is the interim getting paid that? And then he also indicated in his email that she likely would take his role as town manager during the search. So I think we need some answers to the transition process right now. Who's going to be taking over? And how did all this come about without people knowing? And I say people, I'm pretty aware of what's happening at the council level, as you know. That doesn't mean
Sorry, sir.
that doesn't mean I know everything that's going on, but I never saw anything about the assistant town manager, that she was leaving, that there was an interim, and so on. So I appreciate some information on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Anybody else like to come up and speak? David, come up.
Ray Ajemian, 221 Aldridge Road. Basically, Mr. Alivaldi said what I was thinking about saying. I agree with him 100%. I just want to make one point. When you do your search and when you look at the candidates, you're going to ask them questions about running this town, which means budget, fixing roads, all that is very important. I just want you to consider that there are other things that should be looked at in terms of how we live in this town, the livability of the town. Think about the environment, what the person thinks about the environment, of the park system. All these things, I think, are important. They should be considered when you look for a candidate. It's very important, I think, to me, and I think it's important to all of us for living in this town. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. David?
Good evening. My name is David Moore. I live at 54 Flag Street, and I support Mr. Rivaldi 100% on his comments. But I would like to emphasize one thing: local input. There are so many things that are going on in this town, and so many things that are not going on in this town that should be going on, and I'm very, very concerned about it. I was shocked the other night when I heard the report from the water consultant that the town of Bridgewater, who once had an excellent reputation throughout the state, they were among the top 5% of the water commissions in the state. Quality of our water, planning for the future and everything, from 2010, and we went down to where we are today, way behind the ball. I'd like to know how the heck that happened. And here we are planning planning for more housing and so forth. I think whether the citizens are going to be allowed to be part of the search committee or not, it is what it is. I believe they should be, but at the very least, I think the town council should poll people. I'm sure you all get a lot of phone calls and so forth, but I've been to a number of meetings in the last couple months, and I hear a lot of people with a lot of complaints of what's going on, and I would like to see those, not necessarily the complaints he had, but the shortcomings in current town government. Status of our committees, many of our committees in town is very, very poor. Some are non-existent. Why don't we have a Water and Sewer Commission anymore? Why don't we have a Board of Health anymore? How strong is the Veterans Council? We have an assistant town manager right now who's proposing to move the Board of Health office into the building inspector's office. Now, to me, it doesn't make sense. As working as a building inspector in town for 20 years, I know both offices need private communications with citizens, whether it be building issues, health issues, or whatever. You can't put both of these offices together. And then I hear today, somebody called me up and said, I've been calling the Board of Health for 3 days, and I can't get anybody to answer the phone or return the calls. I find out that the Board of Health administrative, the lady in the Board of Health office, I don't know what her exact title is, but she had been there for many years. She gave 9 months' notice that she was going to retire. That position's been open for 3 weeks. There's nobody in the office. I don't see how there can be any excuse for that. And you have the agent, he's in and out of here all the time, so naturally people aren't going to get their calls answered. And I think those are very serious concerns that the council or whoever the selection committee is going to be aware of. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you, David, appreciate it. Mrs. Hanson.
Good evening, Janet Hanson, Pleasant Street.
Recordings.
Janet Hanson, Pleasant Street. Just a few things. I really don't know too much on the process, but I do agree with Ray, everybody else that already spoke. But citizens do need a part of this, and I do say that request that any current town manager. I request that the current town manager makes no changes in any department locations until the next town manager has assessed and can make informed decisions about discussing with the staff. He shouldn't be making big changes if he's only going to be here for 2 more months. The interim town manager should be charged with creating an organizational chart of the current town offices and departments that can be shared with the citizens. So we can't, I don't know what the plans are for him, but hearing that now you have 2 departments together that shouldn't be together, there is concern. I'm concerned about the amount of building, and I agree that should just ask about how they do with budget and everything, but how we work as a town. So whoever candidate that you're going to be looking at needs to have some type of sense of what the community wants, and it's not just building, 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 building. We don't want building, building, building. And as far as pay, there should be a change, and I thought maybe there was in the charter, but there should never have been an increase of pay before a contract is up. They should be reviewed as any job. You don't get a pay until you're a year up, you get a pay raise. That should never be done before the contract. When the contract's up, then you negotiate. And also, I do know that if we break the contract, there's a penalty on the town, but not if the employee leaves. That shouldn't be, there should be no penalty either way, but if there is, it needs to be both ways. So that's something to consider in all this. And the amount of money that he's getting is based on his job up to this point and years of experience. But what happens when you're hiring a new person? Are they coming in to that same level? You know, some people, they may be worth it, but I don't want somebody coming in just because they know how much money they're going to make. They have to want the job. You know, money's the bonus, but I don't want anybody taking it because they know they're going to make, you know, mucha dollars here. So I think all that needs to be taken into consideration, but it would be nice for the citizens if you take a poll, these are your candidates, and we do need more transparency, as has said. So those are just some thoughts I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Jean?
Hello. I think most of you know me, but I'm Jean DiBattista at 260 Lakeside Drive. And I think you can tell by the amount of people here that the community has an interest in the subject. And, you know, I think that's actually a really good thing because it means that we all care very much about our town and about its future. And I had my little list of qualifications that I'd like to see. I'm sure as you go through the search and the details of the job, that there's many more qualifications to be considered. I do want somebody who is local, may not be Bridgewater, but at least local to the state of Massachusetts and does understand the needs and concerns of Massachusetts citizens. Close to Bridgewater or a Bridgewater resident would be excellent, but I understand that's not always possible. Also, obviously, I think everybody knows this, but we're looking for somebody with experience. I think Michael Dutton did an excellent job in many ways, and he brought a lot to the job. And you know, somebody with the same type of background, with previous experience working with towns, and with a really great educational background. Michael Dutton was an attorney, which I think also really helped with this job, and his understanding of finances was also excellent. The other thing I think really concerns all of us is that there's no conflicts of interest with the person that's selected. I think that is extremely important. There shouldn't be someone who has connections to any particular industry that could represent a reason for them to want to take the job and influence future town processes and activities. And then I think, you know, you all know that I do care about the environment. So I'd like to see somebody who has a balanced concern about things other than the financial, which includes the environment and includes some of the other things that people have talked about here, such as, you know, improving our water supply and improving how we handle planning for future services. We've hit capacity in a number of areas, and I think that concerns us all. And then I also think one of the things that's very important, you can tell by the amount of people here, is we're really looking for a candidate who's collaborative and constructive and who is personable and basically can interact extremely well with the community and listen to community concerns. So that's another quality that I'd like to see. So that's all I really have to say. I thank you, and I hope we're not trying to make this too challenging. And, you know, hoping that we attract a lot of really great candidates. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Anybody else like to come up?
Not here to comment yet on the topic, but I'm getting texts that the feed is not working on Facebook Live. They're getting video, no audio, then it goes blank.
They're working on it.
They said there was a post that it said it was Zoom issue, but they went on another feed for Zoom and it's working fine. A lot of frustration on that. It happened at the last town council meeting too, so.
We're trying to work on the IT on that.
Can we take a break for 5 minutes and let her get a chance to try to fix it?
IT's back on their way. Well, again, it's all being recorded, so, you know, again, the next part of it is going to certainly be after the comments or discussion of the council. So I'll get into the details of that once we finish comments. Anybody else like to come up and citizens' comments? Come on up.
Michaela Jesse Spagone, 5 Lakeshore Center, Unit 1128, lifelong resident of Bridgewater. Mr. President, members of the council, residents in attendance, good evening. First and foremost, I'll be brief in my comments. I worked for the town of Bridgewater for several years in the town manager's office. I will attest to Mr. Dutton's work ethic. He was a decent individual to work for. I certainly appreciated working with him and learning things from him. And the reason why I'm as far in my career as I am is because of the lessons I learned from him. Going forward for the town of Bridgewater, we need to find a town manager who has the same will and temerity to serve the community, but also make difficult decisions during considerable times. I definitely echo the opinions and views of some of my fellow residents here, especially Mr. Evaldi. I do believe we need to find someone who is up to the task. But the one thing I do preface is that all towns that have a council manager form of government all operate very differently. Yes, you all have roughly the same type of charter, but each one is going to have its own separate sets of circumstances, situations, policies, procedures, and rules. And I wish to just remind folks that this town will be different from another town that has a council manager form of government. Their manager may be strong, their manager may be weak. Ours may be strong, ours may be weak in the interpretation of the charter. I stress that with community involvement, everyone take a read of the charter, get a better understanding of it. If you do have questions about it, ask that those questions be answered. But also, do the research. And also, if you want to be a part of the process, if there is an opportunity to be a part of a search committee, step up to the opportunity. Getting to a concern about the committees that may still be vacant. If you are interested in joining a committee, I'm on the finance committee. I know I may have some openings. I would love to see any one of you here as one of my members and one of my colleagues. I would look forward to working with you in that regard. I am currently the vice chair, for full disclosure. But that all said, make your process strict, certain, and firm in what you're looking for and what your requirement's going to be. Because if we're going to make Bridgewater great again, we need to get things done the right way. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, come on up.
Hi, Marilyn Kenny, Hunt, 80 Austin Street. And like MJ, I've also worked for the town, and I think that brings a different perspective from what you have. I greatly appreciate the council. I appreciate what the council does. The councilors that I've worked with, I appreciate their work. I appreciate most of what Michael Dutton has done. I will say, and this is a bit following up on MJ also, I had a lot to do with the boards, committees, and commissions. I worked very hard to track who was on the boards, committees, commissions. I swore them in and tried to give them some information. I felt also very sorry for them. Our boards, committees, and commissions are very weak. Most of them, many of them, don't even exist anymore. People get appointed to them. They have absolutely no training. They don't know what they're supposed to do. They don't have any connection with anything, and it flounders. So I would ask to have you look for someone who really cares about that, because that is the community input to our town government. And I also think it would be important for you to have somebody in your midst who has worked for town government and seen what it's like from the inside when people are coming in and asking questions and not getting their questions answered or wondering what's going on. For instance, things not being posted when we all know that something is happening. So I just ask you to consider that as you're appointing your committee. I hope also, Mr. Evaldi said 2 council members. I would hope maybe 3 council members, 3 community members, and I don't know if town employees are actually able to serve. I don't know, that would be a question for your town attorney. But I would keep it to no more than 9 people, and I would keep it to only 3 town councilors, because there are people with other points of view who are going to be really helpful to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Marilyn. Anybody else like to come up and speak? Come up, Carlton.
Carlton Hunt, 80 Austin Street, Precinct 7. I volunteered in this town since 2005. I served on the Master Plan Implementation Committee, the Master Plan Committee, the Energy Committee, and I currently serve on the Energy Committee, and I currently serve on this CPC as Vice Chair. I think I said, I can't remember, I also served on the first Charter Review Committee, along with Dennis Gallagher and a few other people. I have to say, what my wife just said about the boards, commissions, and committees, basically, we are non-functional in that area. I would ask that the search committee include active committee members that are doing good work in town, maybe 2 or 3 counselors, and other people who have great interest in the town. I think 7 is a good number. I think 9's a better number. I think there's strength in more people having more experiences with town government. And that's what we need to have in this search committee. People who are experienced with all facets or the major facets of the town. That includes elected officials. The Library Board of Trustees, they have some issues. The Administrative Code has serious issues. There are committees that take their instructions from the state law that are non-functional and not being treated properly. Commissions, boards, and committees. You need to bring those people into this search committee, so that aspect of town government is. You need to bring the financial people who are experienced with financial, that's true. But you really need to focus on the people and how the people are going to be best served by a candidate or candidates that apply for this job. I agree, I think I said this, I agree with Ed, but I think it's more like 9 people. He made a really good statement. What are the parameters that you're going to set for the people of this town to see what the search will include? What are those parameters? Those need to be published and vetted in public. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlton. Anybody else like to come up and speak? Going once, going twice. All right. Thank you very much for all of you that came up to speak tonight. I greatly appreciate it.
Do we have Facebook?
Hey. Oh, we gotta fix that.
Yeah.
Did you just step up? Not say another word then. So that gets fixed. Oh, you got it. All right.
So is the
I-
meeting being recorded or what? Yeah, it is.
It's still live.
Okay.
Are we still, are we, all right. Are we doing? Oh, 1 minute. Are we good, Debbie? Are we good? Okay.
Mr. President? I have a question through you to the town attorney before we start the meeting.
Okay.
My question is, could you tell me in the town charter where the council president has authority to set forward a process that we as a council have not discussed?
The council president doesn't, in the charter, have authority. I think
Because there's a whole process outlined, and
that's for your discussion amongst
It's
the
for a
council.
discussion. It's not-
That's not dictated by the charter, if
Right.
that was your question.
This is just a guide for us to have a discussion going forward.
so my second point is, the council president has the authority to appoint.
Why don't
to-
you guys discuss this in your discussion? Start
Yeah,
your
let me
discussion.
get the discussion
I-
going,
And then,
I think it's totally the first thing that we have to address.
well, there is no process
I've been
that's laid out.
told that there is a process in email and verbally that's already predetermined.
It's not
And it's
predetermined.
been set in motion. We
It's not.
already advertised an RFP.
It's not predetermined.
It says here.
An RFP is dictated by the current town manager. So the town manager is the chief procurement officer for the town of Bridgewater.
Yes.
If an RFP is going to be initiated, it has to be initiated by the chief procurement officer under Mass General Laws, Chapter 30B. I believe what has happened, and I have nothing to do with this other than answering your question, is that the chief procurement officer has initiated an RFP process so that the ball can start moving with you all. And any RFP, by the way, is subject to appropriation by you all. So even if that process is underway and you all decide you're not going to appropriate funds for the successful bidder in a procurement process, then there is no procurement process. So my understanding, and I can't answer for the town manager because he's not here, my understanding is, based on what I received as well today, is that he's started an RFP process, which absolutely is within his purview to do, and absolutely he is the only one that can initiate that process as the chief procurement officer. But I think that's it. I don't think anything else is set in stone, which and correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that was the whole point of this meeting, was so that you all could establish your procedures.
Right. This is just, like I said, a guideline discussion, as you can see. Again, I'll
So it's a guideline, but it seems like it's 4 members of a search committee comprised of folks that the president wants to appoint. No, I'm going to continue to...
I think
I have a question for the town council. I have a right to ask him that question.
I understand, but that's part of our discussion process to see
I
if we
have
could go
the-
through all these items.
I believe under 4.1 of the charter that all 9 of us are going to appoint the town manager. I don't
Correct.
think the council president has any power to appoint a subcommittee. I think this council creates subcommittees.
I agree.
We have standing committees and we have
actually-
ad hoc committees, and we have to vote to create that committee. I think it's the cart before the horse.
Well, I'm not hearing the question, but I think the question is, what is the process for the appointment of an ad hoc committee? Is that your
Yes.
question?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's where we're
So
going to discuss this
the process under the charter is very clear for how it works. It's actually the town manager that appoints in any of these committees, and you all ratify. That is the procedure for any committee, ad hoc or otherwise.
You mean us being on like budget and finance? That's the town manager's purview?
That's a preset committee.
Purview of the
That's a
council
preset
president.
committee.
But an ad hoc committee created under the charter is the town manager appoints and you all ratify. So there will be a procedure. It's not happening today. It can't. You don't even have names before you to decide. So your point of today, and again, Mr. President, I don't want to speak out of line. Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought the point of today was for you all to figure out your own procedure.
Right, and again-
I don't think there's anything else pending. I hope that answers your question.
This
Mr.
is
Lindy.
just, like I say, the first step in discussion of the process. Nothing is set in stone, nothing, this is just a guideline, and if you let me start the discussion, I'd be happy to address all these concerns that you have as we go along the program here. So, to that end, we'll discuss, start the discussion tonight. I just want to, remind the crowd that's here that, this is a discussion amongst the town council. We're not having any dialogue between the public and us as we're doing this. But I have set up, again, another citizen's comment at the end. So based on our discussions, you're certainly welcome at the end to come up and give more citizens' comments regarding to what you're here tonight. But right now, we're in a session of basically discussing what our steps are going to be going forward, or at least establishing the steps and having a discussion in that regard. So, as I presented an outline to the council tonight, the goal of tonight's town council meeting is to discuss the action steps needed to hire a new town manager for the town of Bridgewater and agree upon a process. Again, the process is not established and nothing is set in stone at this point in time. We need steps that are efficient, transparent, and gives us the greatest number of candidates to select from. We've gone through this process before. Obviously, as Mr. Fitzgibbons mentioned in his citizens' comments, he was involved in hiring a Mr. Dutton. On Thursday, 7/18, myself, Vice President Murphy, Attorney Rollins, Michael Dutton, Tim Fitzgibbons, who had been involved before, and the secretaries of the town manager and the council, got together just to go over what steps were done in the past and how potentially we could go forward here in the future. We went through those steps and basically, establish a timeline. What kind of timeline are we looking at doing this? This is a process, unfortunately, that could take anywhere from 4 to 5 up to 6 months. And then the original process, when Mr. Dutton was hired, was 9 months. According to the charter, however, when we put interim people in place, They have a 3-month window and a chance to extend another 3 months. So basically, we have 6 months, according to the charter, with interim managers and assistant town managers, to get a new hire in place. So just keep that in mind as we're talking about trying to establish a timely process. So as we just mentioned before, the town, Mr. Dutton issued an RFP to municipal executive search firms with a return date of August 1st. Basically, like I said, a headhunting service to find those most qualified for the position, to get the ball rolling and get some names and interest in our position here in Bridgewater. Hiring a search firm is a necessity in today's times due to a lack of qualified town managers in the profession. There's not a lot out there, and especially in the state of Massachusetts, there's not a lot of town manager, town council form of governments. They're actually more common in other states across the country. So many times there are candidates for town managers that are coming from other states, just to let everybody know. And potential town managers in other towns who may want to come to Bridgewater. So again, there could be existing town managers in other towns that like what they see about Bridgewater, how we're set up, how we're functioning. Again, we had a town manager, town council relationship for 12 years that ran pretty well. So it's an attractive job. We have a very solid town. We have a college in town. I think as far as a town manager job goes, it's a very attractive position. So in that regard, I think doing it this, potential way is best left to a recruiting company to help us find, potential candidates. And they're going to do an exhaustive search locally, across the state, across New England, and any place they find the best candidates for our town would be. Yes, go ahead, Mrs.
Thank you.
Yes,
Mary
Mr.
McGrath, Council at Large. I know we have a lot to cover, but could we do one thing at a time, like the hiring process?
Yeah, we can certainly discuss,
And discuss that
Sure, of
at a
course.
time? Because, I've already looked and spoken to one, like, the Inside Global in Boston, they actually specialize in local government hiring. So if you're going to have a small group, it would be nice if we could put our input of, what to ask them, maybe input what kind of company that we would be interested in hiring.
Well, the RFP goes across the board, so any companies that are interested in procuring our services to find a town manager would be responding to the RFP. So that's, like I said, that's going across the board. That's
So you're going to send it to Boston and those kind of companies out there?
any firm that handles that would be receiving the RFP.
All right, but just to cut it down, could we just go step by step, talk about the hiring, and
Well,
talk
again,
about the
we're
next section?
taking it step by step, most definitely.
And we can ask questions
So
during
just
that time?
on number one, does anyone have any questions on just on what I read here on number one?
I do.
Go ahead.
So the question I have is, I heard about the procurement officer. I hope going forward in the future we'll consider having a separate procurement officer. But I believe that how are these firms, like the one that Councilor McGrath just mentioned, going to even know to bid for the RFP? Where was it advertised? And is Mass Municipal Association got involved, or the two that were mentioned earlier?
Again, the RFP process, I believe, just basically gets the information out of what we're looking for to the potential firms that handle that type of...
It's probably a question for Michael, frankly,
Yeah, I
because
don't
he's
have
the
that
procurement
detail.
officer, but I will tell you, this is very loosely based on my experience with procurement law. The way it usually works is they file certain paperwork at a centralized database in Boston, and a lot of these companies, almost all of them, search that pretty continuously, and there is a list of pending RFPs. I don't know where else it may have been published. You'd have to ask Michael specifically. Again, I had nothing to do with this procurement process, but I'm giving you like a high-level overview of what usually happens. So they create the RFP, they submit the documentation through this centralized database, essentially.
It's
And then-
also, it's also posted on the town website, and for firms that are active in this type of business, they will routinely search town websites to look for newly posted RFPs.
That's how all of ours work. I mean, I can tell you that. In a context like this, like a services RFP. That's how they all work. And that process is pretty standard, so any search company that engages with municipalities is going to check that.
Thank you.
Like I said, pretty standard protocol. It gets, most efficiently gets the information out there so the most amount of people, firms can reply if they want to work with us. Any other questions on that particular item? Any councilors? Okay, good. Number 2, so from there, it was recommended, the president, vice president of the council get together with the town manager, again, the procurement officer, the town finance director, and an HR representative to interview the selected firms if needed, and we gave a potential time frame just to give this a potential time frame. So the early weeks of August, most likely via a Zoom meeting, again, to go over what they could do for the town, how many potential candidates they could bring to the table, things of that nature. In the end, only one firm is chosen. We can't choose multiple firms. You end up choosing one firm that does the search process for you and also works with you in the process of how they work. So from that, again, any questions on that aspect of things?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead, Ms.
I would
Albert.
like to make a motion. I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but in terms of the search committee itself, you said that it's the president and the VP of the council. I would like additional members of this council to be on that.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to that part of the discussion yet, but when that comes on up, we'll discuss it and then go from there. But that's coming up.
All right.
Any other questions just on that number 2 item for any of the councilors? Okay. So then once a firm is chosen, the town would enter into a contract with that search firm on or about mid-August. That search firm would meet with the town council as a whole at a meeting, potentially one of our September meetings, either the 9/10 or 9/17 meeting, to outline and set up the process and gather input from all the town council members to define what they're looking for in a new town manager and
If I
our
could,
expectations.
Just really quickly,
Yes, Attorney
as
Roberts.
it relates to the selection of the firm that the RFP has gone out for, I think it's important to note that there are other considerations other than who the actual search firms are. Under procurement law, we have to consider price because we're using taxpayers' money for it.
Correct.
So I think while that's not noted in here, price is part of the determination when you select a firm. So while
No.
it's nice to select the one that you maybe want the most, sometimes if the procurement process isn't set up a very specific way, you actually end up selecting one that's cheaper. So that'll, again, I did not do this procurement process. There are several different methods in which you can do a procurement under Mass General laws. And so depending on the way that our procurement is set up for this particular circumstance, that may also be a pretty important factor is pricing. So we're not getting into the nuances of 30B on this, nor should we.
Right.
But I just want you to know that's a factor.
Sure.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, hold on a second. Mr. Lindy first.
Through you to the town council, on that note, do we have to select lowest bidder?
So depending on what you do for the actual process. So I'm guessing based on what you've outlined here, and again, I have no knowledge of this, it may be that you're doing a blind bidding process where you look at experience first, and then you have pricing second. And you can actually do it that way. So you do a consideration of kind of exterior factors first and foremost. And then once you get through that part of the process, you open up the bids and you look at the pricing. And so it can actually kind of meld both together. But there are several ways to do this. And again, I don't want to answer specific questions about this RFP because I didn't do it and I have no idea what it says.
So my follow-up
information.
question, let
Hold on a second.
me finish. On my follow-up question, the town manager, current town manager, is the procurement officer.
He is.
So if the committee recommends something and he doesn't agree with it, he doesn't have to hire that firm?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Ms.
Okay,
Albert.
yes, and a point of procedure, I think that we need on this search committee to first be hiring the professional search committee we need more council members and citizens involved with what the criteria will be. We don't have to necessarily go with the cheapest bid if, let's say, something in the middle is far better and has the interests of the citizens best represented. So, the procurement officer situation, we should review that with the council, okay? Because he has made the criteria for the RFP, and I think this council needs to review what that RFP was at the root of this whole process.
Again, what you all decide on your process, I can't speak to. I have no take in that. I have no horse in that race. What I'm saying is the chief procurement officer under our charter and as appointed is the town manager. The current town manager, as the chief procurement officer, has certain authorities granted to him under Mass General laws that exceed anything that you would put in place by way of policy. He would have to follow certain things by law. So again, I can't speak to the hypothetical of what this situation looks like, because number one, you guys haven't decided how you want to address this situation.
We can see the RFP that's already been put out, if that could be made public.
So, again,
I'm
Mr.
I'm sure it is public.
Yeah, it's a
An RFP has to, like, you'll be able to find that.
Is it on our website already?
My understanding, and again, I can't speak to this, I'm sure someone can, I think it's on our website, I think it's been posted in the newspaper, and I also think that it's in a centralized database. It's very public.
It's very public.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
So I think, just to clarify, I know, Ms. Striggles, you had a question? Just to answer a little bit what you were saying. The point of bringing in these extra people just to review this process is going to be, I don't think, necessary for the fact that we are bringing in a finance director in the town's HR department, which has the best knowledge relative to the firms that would be doing this type of work. So we just, again, getting to a decision on what firm we want to work with to
Yes.
help us do the search. So to...
Bless you.
Oh, bless
Yes.
you.
Yes.
So to have a laborious process just to determine the
Point of discussion?
The search firm, I'm discussing this with you, to have anyone else involved in that in order just to get to a point of choosing a firm just doesn't seem to be practical. But please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We councilors represent the citizens sitting out there.
Yes, I understand what you're saying.
We
Ms.
need to hear from them. We need to take in their
I
concerns.
understand, we're not talking with the public right now, we're talking amongst ourselves.
I'm not talking to the public at this moment, but before the public. But we councilors are the conduit between citizens and government,
I understand.
okay? And we need more counselors involved in the search process at an earlier stage.
Again, we're going to be talking more about how this is going to work with the searching for the actual candidates. We're just getting to the point of selecting a search firm to help us find candidates. And I think, again,
And the
way it's
criteria,
outlined, to use
the criteria of the search firm will be important as well. That is the ground level
yeah,
on
we're
which
not-
it is based.
I understand, but again, what we're looking for is the firms, again, based on the RFP, coming in at a certain fee and what they can offer the town for their service. That's being reviewed by professionals in the town that have that background to review. I personally don't know much about, these executive search firms, as I don't know if any of the other council members do. We're using the members of the town to find out, what is the best firm that's going to help us go forward, so we can work as a council to find a new town manager. I want to just go ahead, let me add Mrs. Striggles' question.
Thank you so much. Based on the feedback that we received this evening from our constituents and the similar feedback of 3 town council members being involved at any stage of the decision, I do think since we are a balance of 9, if you add another council member to this process specifically, it allows more seats at the table for everybody that's sitting here and allows someone who may have more HR experience to sit at this portion, or someone who has more communication skills at this point, or someone who maybe has a different level of a pulse on what the town needs, wants, or concerns are. I do think that having 3 at this point is crucial because we're going to eventually probably have 3 down the line. So why not involve more voices now versus later?
That's fine, we can certainly, could we add a 3rd counselor to that group? That's, I don't see that being a problem. Again, that's just for the step of choosing a search firm, okay? Go ahead.
I think Susie was first.
Oh, sorry, Susie, I'm sorry.
I think that that's very reasonable. Does that actually create any kind of issues in terms of quorums or?
No, I don't think having
Okay.
3 creates a quorum issue. But I want to be clear, again, while the process is great, you got to follow 30B. The chief procurement officer is the town manager of the town of Bridgewater. So that is what the charter says. That is what Mass General Law says. So whether you all, don't agree with that or whatever, that's fine. But that is what the law is. So I think it's really important to understand that as it relates to that particular thing that has to go out to bid. This isn't the selection of a town manager. The thing that has to go out to bid. It has to follow 30B. At the end of the day, under 30B, the chief procurement officer selects what they choose to select under the RFP in accordance with the law and in accordance with, what they get back for an RFP. So even if there's a review committee, right, which you can do.
Which is going to be separate, and that's not even at this level yet.
You can do a review committee of the bids that come in. It does not mean that you will have a vote to dictate that decision upon the chief procurement officer. So I want that to be very clear
It's
so
in the
that
end,
you
it's
all
up to the town manager's
you all
choice.
don't have a misconception that you're actually going to direct that because you can't.
No.
The law says you can't. So that's important. It's important to understand that. That's only on the issue of the search firm.
Correct.
After that,
Right, and that's
you
why-
guys are going to control the
Right, so
whole other
that's-
part of the process.
I mean, again, we can have a 3rd counselor be on, in the group and hearing that information, that's not a problem. But again, even myself or the vice president in that process, we have no say, because we're not procuring the services of that particular situation. We're getting feedback, but the town manager's making.
Point of information.
Sorry.
She wasn't finished.
Let me finish.
My
first.
comments.
And
I'm already feeling a tenor of a lot of stress. And I'm not underestimating, this is an incredibly important decision for this town. Every single one of us has a vested interest, right? But I'm feeling a lot of energy of, we're really anxious. And I just want to say, can we, just be open-minded. This was just a guide for discussion.
Right.
I think every single person on this council is 100% dedicated in making sure that voices are heard, but at the right moments, okay? So I just want to ask for some patience and, yes, guide us for
I thank you,
education.
Ms. Robinson, for that.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, thank you.
I-
Mr. Lindy?
First of all, I don't want people to tell me what I can and can't say. So I'm sorry if you think it's a heightened discussion.
I'm not trying to censor you. I'm just
Right.
saying, like,
Well,
there's a lot of
let me say-
angst. And
Yeah,
and I'm
there is,
just-
because it seems like the process, I talked to the council president, I emailed the council president, and it pretty much seemed like it was etched in stone, okay? And otherwise, we would have been
but we just
meeting.
said
Let me
tonight it's
finish,
not.
please.
Let me finish the statement.
Okay? August 13th was our next meeting. If a bunch of us hadn't asked for a meeting today, we wouldn't be meeting till August 13th. All of these dates in here go up to the 12th, coincidentally, okay? If you look at this piece of paper that we all got handed at, 7 o'clock. I got it before because I exchanged an email with President Perry, okay? I think we're all elected, all 9 of us, to pick a town manager. That's what 4.1 says. I don't want people pre-screened ahead of time. I dealt with the search committee, so I'm going to tell you right now that I'm the person on the council right now that, and I don't know this for sure, but I have plenty of experience. I did 2 presidential searches at Massasoit. We had ethics laws, state code, we got training for it. The committee was 15 people. Just so you know, the president of Bridgewater State was involved. I hired 3 library directors. I was involved with the Brockton superintendent search, and I was a hiring manager for 25 years. So I'm not going to cede my seat at the table with my right to be able to be part of this process and have it boil down to a committee of 4. I'm not doing it.
And I would like to make a motion that we amend the process that we were handed today.
This isn't an ordinance or anything. This is just a discussion sheet. This
Okay.
is just a discussion.
Then I would like to make a motion that Mark Lindy be appointed as an additional counselor at this early stage of the review
Point of order.
situation.
So you're making motions. They're difficult to stop, but they're out of order, so they can be stopped. You can't make a motion for the appointment of a member of a body. As I explained at the beginning of the conversation, the way our charter reads, the town manager appoints and you ratify. That would need to come on an agenda. There would need to be a specific person named. That person then you all would take a vote to either ratify that person or not. So while you're making motions, and if they were proper and in order, they would have to be acted on. They're out of order because you cannot make an appointment of a member of a body without, number 1, the town manager making the appointment, and number 2, the town council ratifying the appointment. That's what the charter says, and that's what the administrative code says. So I don't want you to feel like you're being stymied in terms of making your motions. I want you to understand that procedurally they're out of order. That's why they can't be acted on.
And we don't have a subcommittee yet. We haven't had that discussion.
That's right. We're first approaching the subcommittee, I understand.
Right.
One comment I would just like to make, and that is, who hires the town manager?
We do.
The council. Let us all keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ellenberg. All right, so, any other questions or comments before I try to move forward? Okay. Let me see. So as far as if we get to the point where we have a firm that's chosen, the town would enter into a contract with that search firm, and I think I've mentioned this before, so I'm sorry, I'm reiterating. So again, we would meet with that firm as a council to go over all of our input, all of the process involved in it, and the timeframes thereabout. On number 4, so again.
Can I just ask a question on number 3?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
It says that the search firm will meet with the town council at a meeting on September 9th, 10th, or 9/10 or 9/17.
Potentially as a time frame
What
to be determined.
what I'm going to say is, I don't care how many meetings we have to have, if we have to meet weekly. I don't think we can wait till 9/10 or 9/17.
Well, again,
council input.
it's all a process. It's going to take time. So, I mean, here we are, mid-July here. We're setting a basic time frame. We're getting responses by August. Again, just based on potentially how it's all going to go, this is an estimate. Nothing is written in stone here. But again, just as an estimate. So I hope that answers your question. But again, everything can be moved accordingly depending on, we might need to set up an extra meeting or 2 as a council, just like we added this one.
That's what I'm saying.
So,
Yep.
we'll do whatever we need to do. Going forward, we do need to set up a search committee. This is obviously the big question and animal in the room here. The last time we hired a town manager, a 4-person search committee was formed from the town council members. We chose 4 because, again, 5 would be a quorum of the council, so we can't have more than 4.
Why not? Why not post it as a
right.
quorum
So
and
there-
then do your business?
Yeah, so that's for you guys to discuss. But
This is the discussion.
The reason, first, if you're going to do it, when you vote, you want to be very clear that you call it a preliminary screening ad hoc committee. Because under Massachusetts law, there are protections given to less than a quorum of a body politic that's doing preliminary screening of candidates. Those protections, and just so you know contextually why these exist, oftentimes candidates who are applying for jobs have other jobs. They do not want that to become public knowledge. Many candidates will not apply if they have to interview in a public forum before they get to the finalist stage. That is very common practice. You could call any town. Most towns do these preliminary screening committees. But it's important you call it as such, and it's also important that it's less than a quorum. That's why there's 4. If it's 5, it's an open meeting. So you're not able to avail yourself of the same types of privacy and confidentiality.
How about posting an open meeting and then going into executive session?
That's what you do even with less than a quorum. You
Right,
still
so we
post
could
it.
have regular meetings also and do it that way and keep this all, under wraps, okay? But have the full council here.
Well, the problem is the exception under the open meeting law does not apply in the same way if there's a quorum of the body politic. So it's important that it be less than a quorum and that they post their meeting.
Okay, I'm
And
going to
they-
check this with the Secretary of State
You
because
can
this
check
seems
it-
weird
you
to
can-
me.
You can check it with whoever you would like.
Okay.
And this, I'm going to say it very clearly and concisely so that you can take a note and you can check, all right?
Mhm.
It needs to be less than a quorum to avail yourself of all of the benefits that we're talking about with confidentiality. Less than a quorum, needs to call the meeting, post the meeting and call the meeting, so you open the meeting, needs to then go into executive session. During the can I finish? During the meeting, there needs to be minutes taken in the same way that you have to take minutes in any other meeting. When it's disposed of, meaning once the town manager has been appointed, those minutes have to be approved by the entire body and become public knowledge. You can check me on from every person you want to call. That's the exact process. You can check with any other town. You can check with the Secretary of State. I'm happy to give you the number of the Attorney General's office.
Thank you.
That's the process.
Thank you.
On that
Mr.
note,
Lundy.
do you know the chapter and verse?
Yeah, there's actually, I think I pulled up, there's some case citation.
Okay,
If I don't have it with me, I'll definitely give it to you.
that's fine.
But I have actually some case cites on how you do the process.
Okay.
So it's 30A, sections 18 through 25 is the open meeting law.
Yeah.
And then there's a good case on this that's called Gerstein versus Superintendent Search Screening Committee, 405 Mass 465, page 470. It's a 1989 case.
Okay.
I'm sure I can go down a litany of other ones, but that's a pretty specific citations I gave you.
And just for the record, even though I think more council should be involved, when I was on the search committee at Massasoit Community College, there were X number of trustees. I'm an adjunct faculty member, so I represented the adjunct faculty. It's not like, and then on the school committee, they had a subcommittee too, because what Attorney Rollins is saying is a lot of people will not apply for the job because they're afraid that their current employer
Correct.
will, get rid of them or figure out a way to get rid of them. So I just wish there was a way that other counselors could at least attend that meeting.
It's just, you don't fall under the same protections or exemptions. That's the problem. And I think the reason they do it this way and that it's evolved this way is you can't pick just one finalist out of that screening committee, by the way.
Right.
That would defeat all of your protections.
Right.
So you have to come out of it with at least 2,
yeah.
but you can come out of it with, frankly, how many ever you want to come out of it with and present that. And then the body politic gets to interview these candidates in open session. I mean, that's a whole nother, we'll have discussions about how that process should look because there's employment law implications that you all maybe have never interviewed employees that have nothing to do with being government officials that you could actually be in some trouble for if we violate, or the town could as well. So I want to make sure I'm also helping you with that. But that is the reason they've set it up this way. is so that you can kind of screen through it, so that what you all get to, which will be totally public, all interviews in these situations are public. We'll have a special meeting where we line up the interviews and you do the interviews, but it gets to the finalists. That part of it keeps it confidential, so that, frankly, you encourage people who maybe have jobs that they're in to apply. So that's just the context.
Right.
For what
And again, one of the biggest things, guys, is a lot of these candidates may not put their name in, especially if they're coming from an existing position, and that could certainly jeopardize their current position if they didn't want that information coming out. So there's definitely some, keeping it private to some degree is really important in the early stages of the screening process. Go ahead, Council.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does it just have to be councils? Could we, on that ad hoc, or could we have like retired department heads on it? So we could have input from the public, but retired department heads, so they would know, about the town.
Well, again, we can set it up, again, how big a body it is, but again, the larger the body, the more time it's going to take to go through the initial steps of just the pre-screening.
I'd like to see, though, at least two department heads, and they know about keeping privacy. They've gone through this whole thing. So I think that would be beneficial to add at least
I don't know
two.
but again,
Well, we have Mrs. Hunt right in the audience. I don't think it would be hard to find two.
Well, again, ultimately, this is a council hire. So again, in the history of what we've done as a town, it's been council members on the ad hoc committee. And again, it's up to the town manager to, nominate those for the ad hoc committee. If he wants to put anyone else on that committee, that's definitely under his purview. But that would be a discussion that you might want to, send him an email, or discuss with him about directly, or make your feelings known on that.
Okay, I'll do that.
All right?
Thank you.
On that topic, does any other councilors have any more discussion?
Just on the ad hoc committee topic,
Yes,
I
yeah.
think probably the only thing that you all should vote on, if anything at all, is whether or not you want to have it. Because it sounds to me like there might be a disagreement about whether or not you want to have an ad hoc committee. If you determine by majority vote that that's something you want, at the next meeting is a good opportunity to kind of parse that out a little bit. What is it composed of? Who would sit on it? How many people would sit on it? That the specifics should come as a more specific agenda item, but I think by all means, a motion that you want to create an ad hoc committee is completely appropriate, and then you would probably go into more detail at the next meeting about what that's composed of.
Right, I think, again, that's what I wanted to obviously get everyone's, feedback on the committee. Again, it's been proposed to be a four-member. Again, the formation of just an ad hoc committee is a power, any subcommittee is a power of the council to form. So before the night is over, I will look to, have someone make a motion to form at least an ad hoc committee whose members are to be determined. But if we are going to go that route, I'd like to certainly have the council make that, move tonight so we can go forward with establishing a preliminary screening ad hoc committee. That's only going to get the ball rolling for us going forward.
Question?
Hold on, Ms. Robinson.
What's the alternative if there isn't an ad hoc committee?
It's all public.
Right.
So essentially, you would go through this process in public.
And unfortunately, most of
With
those...
each of the candidates, and it can get, we would have to be very careful how we did it.
Okay.
That's why it never happens that way.
It would-
Towns
If we
don't
want
do-
people to apply.
Well, it's also like employment lawsuits waiting to happen, because it's just a minefield of things you could say or do that could create problems. So usually they pare it down, and then it's kind of a very organized way in which you all ask questions of these people to elicit the answers you're looking for. That's why they do it that way. But it would be it would just be an entirely public process amongst you all.
Okay.
If you decide to go that route, then we're going to have to figure out what that looks like then, right? We're going to have to create a nice kind of procedure for this is how we're going to do that.
Okay.
So that it's organized and you're conducting professional interviews of professional people in an appropriate manner.
So then if we do vote to have this smaller search committee with appointees from the town manager, if the council does not ratify it, does it basically keep going back and forth, whatever configuration it might be? Until it's ratified?
Yeah,
Potentially, yes.
Yeah, I think it goes back and forth until you all set the parameters for the search that you all are responsible for doing. So this could go on for a very long time with you all arguing over what the procedure looks like, but that's your prerogative, right? You are the ones that get to dictate that, so.
Yep,
But keep that in mind, that, the longer we take to make those decisions, the longer it's going to take to go through this process.
Right, thank you.
Yes, Ms. Lindy?
So kind of on Councilor Robinson's point and Attorney Rollins' point, our subcommittee, our search committee at Massasoit was 15 people, okay? And it included citizens, it included Board of Trustees, it included faculty, it included the Mayor of Brockton. It was a pretty, and I personally was interviewed when I got my job by a nonprofit board of directors appointed by the mayor of the city of Brockton. I had 12 people interviewing. My point in the whole thing is these people are the people that are going to lead us. And if there's 9 people sitting there ultimately on a committee, they should be able to present before 9 people. Or adding, I don't like big committees. We're a 9-member council. I was on a 9-member library board. The biggest of anything I ever like is 11. I'm on the United Way board, and we have 35, and we can't get a quorum. But, I don't want to kick it back and forth. I am worried about a completely public process, but I do think citizens should be involved.
Well, again, it is a public process to the point where, again, all the finalists are going to be in front of the council. It is a completely public process. Again, there's a pre-screening, again, that has some delicacy when it comes to, any, names coming out early. So, again, those top candidates that come through that pre-screening are the ones that are probably going to be the most important candidates to interview, and that's all going to be done in front of the entire council. So I believe that in itself is going to be as transparent as we can get as a council. Ms. Striggles.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also, Sonia Striggles, District 1 Counselor. Is the 4 ad hoc committee members just what worked in the past when Mr. Dutton was hired? Or is that what is now being recommended now? I think based on where the town is now, I think community involvement, we heard earlier, is paramount to our constituents. So I do think that 4 definitely limits not only council involvement, but community involvement as well. So I would recommend that it be probably no greater than 9, but definitely much more than 4.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Ms. Ellenberg.
Could I just answer that question? Because I heard I think it was 3 when Michael was first appointed.
It was.
I'm not positive. I'd have to look back. I was part of that process. But if I remember off the top of my head, and you're talking 10 years ago, so I think it was 3. Yeah.
Ms. Ellenberg.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to, at this time, have a vote to establish this ad hoc committee with 9 members.
You cannot do this ad hoc committee with 9 members.
Why? What does it say
Because,
we
again,
can't?
it's going to be,
Are you talking 9 members of the town council?
No, nine members of the ad hoc committee.
Here's my suggestion, because you guys are talking the specific makeup of the ad hoc committee. I think that should be on a council agenda, and it should be
For our next meeting.
Yeah, and I think it should be well thought out by each of you how you want to make it up. What I said could be voted tonight, just based on what the agenda is whether or not you want to have an ad hoc committee, first and foremost.
So I'm not stipulating any number of members, but just the establishment of a plenary screening ad hoc committee, and then we can dictate to the town manager, who is going to appoint those members, what we want that ad hoc committee to be consisting of.
Well, yeah,
I stand by my motion. I stand by my motion for 9 members.
Okay, and again, the town manager makes the appointment. So, under the charter and under the administrative code. So while
his current status is
town manager.
He's still the town
pray
manager.
tell his current status.
Is town manager.
He's still the town manager.
He's under contract.
Until
until he resigns.
He did.
His letter of resignation was submitted, and his last day is September 4th.
There you go.
Okay.
So until September 4th, Michael Dutton is the town manager.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on just a second. Mr. Rollins, so as far as the town manager establishing the committee,
I think you should
who
make a
establishes the number or?
I think
or the-
you all can talk about that, but I think he needs to be here. He is the appointing person.
Right.
It's great for me to give you the legal, but I don't select these people. I
Do
don't
we know when he's
decide.
coming back? When his
He'll be
vacation is
he'll
up?
be back next week. He's just on vacation.
So I'm
So
going
then
to
we
ask
should-
for a meeting next week, on
Yes, it
Tuesday
needs
night
to
at
be on
7.
the agenda. It needs to be on the agenda for next week, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so, all right, so.
But you have to, first of all, the town manager and the council president have to speak and make sure that there's the ability to schedule a meeting for next week. That's step one, if that's what you all want to do. That's for you to talk about, not in public session, but to figure out logistically if that works.
Yep.
If it does, then you can schedule it. You can do your proper notices. But as part of that, before we even get to what you want to set up, you should make a vote whether or not you want to have an ad hoc committee.
Right.
First and foremost.
Sure. So, okay, so.
Well, there is a motion pending.
All right.
And I'll second the motion.
All right, so second for discussion. So there's a motion on the floor to establish an ad hoc committee.
Consisting of 9 members.
And you second that. Mr. Murphy?
Can I ask a question on that motion? Just to clarify for the folks in the audience, because they don't have the sheet in front of us. What we're discussing now is the preliminary ad hoc group.
Correct.
Which would, regardless of the number, then put forth 3 or 4 names for the entire council to ultimately decide on.
Correct.
So what we're saying here is we want all 9 on that prelim committee.
Not
to
all 9
review.
councilors, to be determined, but I think they're looking
the
to
ad
have.
I think that's the motion though, right?
You know what, are you saying, you're not saying all 9 members of the council?
No, no, no.
Just a 9-member ad hoc committee?
9-member to be determined by the council
And the town manager.
in terms of the breakup.
So we're talking, just to clarify again, sorry.
Just 9 members, 9
9-member
people on
ad
the
hoc
ad hoc
committee.
committee. Is the- is
Open
the
to anybody right now, we're not discussing
Well,
who
the
that is.
council is going to have to determine, do we have department heads? Do we
That's
have
gonna be a
citizens?
discussion. That's gonna be-
That will be our discussion.
Well, how can I vote on the 9 if I don't understand who we're
Well,
putting on
because,
the committee?
because that has to do with the openness of the committee and setting those parameters.
So so we're talking about 9 people on a preliminary committee.
Mhm.
We don't know who they are, what the makeup is, and that's what we're voting on now. I'm asking you, you made the motion.
Okay. Because it has not been determined as to citizens or department heads or counselors or our treasurer or other people, we'll have to discuss that further. I'll withdraw my motion at this point.
I'll withdraw my second.
I would make a motion
Mr. Chase?
to create a preliminary screening ad hoc committee, period.
Correct.
I second that.
And we have a second. Any further discussion on that motion by any councilors?
I would,
Okay, Ms. McGrath?
that's okay.
So say if we say we want 9 or 6, and we vote on that, can the town manager say, no, I only want 5?
We need to have the discussion with the town manager present. We
I was
really,
just wondering if he's in charge of that, because he picks who goes on there.
right, but that's a discussion as a council we can have with him as far as the makeup of that committee.
I was just wondering
So
if he
he
has
can make the
control
appointments
over...
as we're,
You can select the number, right?
But we have
then
control
he,
over the
yeah,
number.
because you're creating the ad hoc committee when you get
Okay.
to that point.
That's what I
All
was
right, but first,
Okay.
you're putting the cart before the horse with the number.
Correct.
You have to vote
I
you
would
want to
agree.
have an ad hoc committee, and then at the next hearing, we should determine the makeup of it, the number of people, what it consists of. That should be the next steps, and then comes the appointment process. So you're going to have several meetings to parse this out.
I was just curious, because if
Hold on a second.
we wanted 6, and he could bring it down to 4, I mean, why waste
Well,
my
no,
time?
he doesn't determine how many are on the
That's
committee.
what I wanted to
He
know.
determines the appointments.
Okay, thank you.
so that's why we just have to have a discussion with him present, I think, in order to come up with a number. All right, Mr. Lindy?
So, through you to the town council, in the past, we have 2 ad hoc committees of this council, downtown revitalization and gaming, okay? and the council president appoints those positions. Are we not doing that correctly?
No, you're not. But this is the first one I've been asked about and I'm involved in. And
I was discovering in my research.
the administrative code is very clear on this. The administrative code says appointments to these ad hoc committees shall be made by the town manager, subject to ratification by the town council. It's as clear as day. That's in your admin code. So, no, you haven't been doing it correctly. But this is the first time I've been asked about it, and I'm telling you, there's a proper way to do it.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important, in particular in this process, that you guys follow procedure to a T when you're hiring a town manager.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Robinson?
Just because we have a motion on the floor and just open for discussion, and I know we'll discuss it in the next meeting, but I too would like to see a more robust search committee that would be comprised of other constituents beyond the town council.
Okay. Point well taken. Any other comments, questions from any councilors? So we have a motion and a second. With no
Can
further
I ask a
discussion.
roll call?
You want a roll call vote? Okay.
Please.
So can we have a roll call vote
Just
on?
clarify, sorry, one
Okay.
more time what we're voting
So
on.
right now, we're just voting on the development of a preliminary screening ad hoc committee with the number to be determined after meeting with the town manager.
The only thing I would add to that motion you may want to amend is the time period for which this will exist. Because also under the administrative code, ad hoc committees can only exist for a certain amount of time. So you may want to say 7 months, or, if you're just making sure you're careful so you don't have to redo this.
Yep.
So you would say, I think Mr. Chase is right on using the term because you have to describe the point of the ad hoc committee.
Correct.
The ad hoc committee can only be, their only role is to discuss the stuff that's under that heading.
Purview.
Okay?
Right.
And then it can only happen for a finite period of time. So those things you can address today.
Sure.
The makeup of it, you can all have a very robust and lively discussion, I'm sure, about at the next hearing. But then at least you can post it, and then you can kind of gather your thoughts and really think about it.
So, Mr. Chase, would you like to amend with any time frame on that?
I would do that. If an appropriate time period would appear to be, I think, 7 months, was that right?
I mean, what do we think?
Just a year.
I would just say,
you can do it for a year. It doesn't
1 year.
hurt. You
Just
can
say
always
1 year.
dissolve it. You
If
can
it
dissolve
If
it.
it takes that long, it's going to be terrible, but, all right, we'll say it for 1 year.
1 year.
1 year. And you follow
I do
up with that in
second
a
that,
second?
yep.
Okay. So based on that amended motion, we are now voting on the formation of a preliminary screening ad hoc committee to exist no longer than 1 year, whose membership to be determined after meeting with the town manager. And we will have a roll call vote.
The amount of the roll call, the amount to be determined.
That's what I said.
Okay.
Ms. McGinnon?
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
Ms. Ellenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Ms. Striggles?
Yes.
And Ms. McGrath?
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
All right, so we have made the move to form that preliminary screening ad hoc committee. Thank you to the council for that. All right, getting on to my next line here. So once, we do have that screening committee put together, the search firm will then start a comprehensive search and submit town manager candidates to the search committee for review. My hope is around late September, early October, once the ad hoc committee is ratified. Going in this direction will provide the privacy many candidates will seek as a first step, as they may be in an existing position that they do not want to jeopardize. Going with an open process.
He can't hear.
I'm sorry. Oh, excuse me. Can I have order in the gallery, please? Yeah, thank you. So to continue, going in this direction will provide the privacy many candidates seek as a first step, and they may be in an existing position that they don't want to jeopardize. Going with an open process in public with the entire council in the early stages may deter many due to exposure and limit the amount of candidates the town receives from the search firm. So we went over that in detail. The search committee will then forward the names of 3 to 4 finalists, and again, it could be more if we have more finalists that deem that we need to interview, to the council as a whole. and we'll interview them in front of the town council, and an additional public meeting would have to add something beyond our normal meetings that we have around that time. But again, maybe at the earliest, late October, sometime in November. With the hopes of...
Please.
Thank you. With the hopes of naming a new town manager in late November, December. Again, this is optimistic timing. We do need to decide on someone by early January, just as an aside. As a new town manager, if they're coming from another position, just like town manager in Bridgewater to give us 45 days notice according to his contract, they might have to give at least 30 to 60 days notice from their existing job that they're coming from. So if we have something decided by January, then we'd hope to have them in position where we need them in early March, which is the 6-month time limit that our charter allows for interim town manager and assistant town manager. And that is in the charter. So again, to expedite this is very important. We don't want to belabor this process. We want to try and make this as efficient a process as possible in order to get where we need to be to get someone in place.
So
Yes,
on those two,
Yeah.
can we make sure that the ad hoc committee get training from the search firm? Because that's absolutely critically important.
Yeah, well, again, the search firm is definitely, again, this is the discussion.
Hopefully, it's in the RFP.
Well, again, the search firm will come in front of all of us originally, and to go over what we're all looking for as far as the qualities of a town manager. And then they actually will be responding directly. The communication is with that ad hoc committee. Typically, that's where they will go back and forth with. So
I also want to make clear on the ad hoc committee thing, and I think this probably is not thought of by someone that wants to hop on to that. The town will not represent them if they're exposed to any liability as part of that process. I want to be very clear. So the town represents the town council as the town of Bridgewater. If you throw yourself in the employment ring and there's an issue, the town of Bridgewater and their insurance company will not represent you. So if you say something and it is out of our hands. So I want people who sign up for that to understand that. No matter how much ad hoc committee training they get, we're talking about an employment process. So regardless of how public the employment process will become, because when you get to finalists, they're all going to be interviewed in public. Prior to that, employment is replete with things that can happen. So I really want you to think about that. And I want whoever steps in to think about that, because they're not in a capacity in which the town would be representing them for their actions.
Including a town councilor.
The town council is fine. The town council is doing the interviews. The town council is making the decision.
Right.
You're the employer. So that's why it's usually within the confines of the town council. And you usually are the mouthpiece of your constituents. That's your role.
So that would be...
So I just want this to be, this is not how you hire someone under a town meeting and select board. It's a little different.
Different procedure.
Right? And so you all are voted in, listening to your constituents, and you, when you are doing these interviews, can consider anything your constituents tell you about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's important to remember, all right, when you're thinking about this, okay?
And if there's anyone outside of the council on the ad hoc and something goes awry or said something that they shouldn't be saying, they're exposed. Right. They're exposed. So, but just keep that in mind.
Is that for all ad hoc committees?
It's only in the employment context
realm.
because you're hiring someone as an employer. Most other ad hoc committees are advisory in nature, so they just are giving advisory opinions on something. And other committees are adjudicatory. This is a very unique committee because you're filling in a role as part of an employment process, hiring someone for which you actually have no purview over their hiring. It's one of a kind in that way. It's completely unique in that way.
One hopes our town manager would take the advice of the council in terms of who to select.
Yeah, and that's why that's personally, I know I'm answering all these questions, but I'm not the person to answer those ones, right? And I think you all need to have that discussion so that we are on the same page and we're moving forward in a way that is productive, right, and efficient.
Yep, I agree. All right. So, any further questions on that last aspect that we talked about? Okay. Moving on, just a statement and being in communication with Mr. Dutton. Again, in this process of him, transitioning out, again, he's been here 12 years. He's done a lot of great work. He wants to leave us in a good position. He wants to do anything he can do to help with the transition. Right now, the town has a lot of projects going on, a lot of moving parts, more than most area towns right now. So, to go forward with all these projects going on, he wants us to, do what we need to do to, more than any other town. We need focused attention from day one and getting an interim town manager in place and then a permanent town manager. Again, trying to create a seamless transition as much as we can, so the town can operate as it does normally. So in regards to...
Can I ask a question about what you just said?
Okay, go ahead, yeah.
So on all the search committees that I've been on, the person that held the job had no influence whatsoever.
Yeah, he's not. He wants to be supportive.
Supportive is one thing, but what if we don't want him to?
Then we'd have to decide as a council if we want his input or not.
I think that's up to the council.
Yeah, for sure. So just going forward, and again, the next big thing to talk about is potential interim town manager. As I stated earlier tonight, I received Michael's letter of resignation on Friday, July 19th. Basically, his contract stipulates 45 days' notice, so his last day will be September 4th, which is right after Labor Day, which will mean he will not be here for our September 10th meeting. And obviously, we do want to have someone in place potentially for that meeting. Councilor Murphy and myself met with interim assistant town manager Blythe Robinson this morning to get her a sense of how her experience in Bridgewater has been going so far and her possible willingness to step into the interim town manager role. Again, many councilors have not even met her yet. This was my first time meeting her. I know a few people were asking some questions earlier, which I kind of want to just bring up to the council members. Let me see where I got that information. There's the one I'm looking for. So just for the council's information, she has been with us here so far since March 2023. She's been working remotely with the accounting department as a comptroller for our grants. Because right now, the accounting department does not have a comptroller. So that's important in that department. At the end of June of 2023, she took over the role of assistant town manager. But she is, she's a former town manager in a few different towns. She is retired from full-time town manager work. She does this type of work, filling in different towns and different roles based on her experience. So far, she has had the chance to work with a number of the departments and get to know many of the people in the departments of this town, and she's continuing to expand and meet those people as well. But again, her willingness is definitely something that she would like to step into the interim role if we so want her to. She would be fine either way. But I would like to obviously have her come in front of a town council meeting. I'm certainly planning for the August meeting to have her come to appear before the council for introductions, Q&A, and obviously for the public's input as well, and to see her. She, I lost my space here. Let me just read what I've got here. Right now is the assistant town manager role. She's coming in here 2 days a week. So we would obviously look to expand that role. If, as a council, we, and one of the things that's just came to mind, what I would like to see council members do, if you've not met her yet, in the coming weeks before our August meeting, if you'd like to call and set up an appointment to meet with her, to ask any questions that you have. She has background information on herself, but just to get familiar with her and her background, I would encourage you to do so. I know Council Lindy is meeting with her tomorrow, so if other councils have the opportunity to do that, I would certainly encourage that as well, even before she comes to speak in front of us. But
I'm sorry, you said tomorrow?
Council Lindy is meeting with her
scheduled-
tomorrow. I'm just saying, if you
okay.
give her a call, call her and set up a time to meet with her, just to get to know her and get to know her background, so you can be familiar with her as a potential interim town manager.
So just to be clear, are you looking to put that on for ratification at the next meeting, or are you just
Well-
looking to have a meeting with her and then at the
So again,
September meeting?
the discussion here is, the time is of the essence. We don't have a long time before, Michael is not going to be here. To go through a process of trying to find another interim town manager from an outside source who hasn't had any, association with Bridgewater to date, is also going to take more time. I think we would be better served to use the resources that we have in place so far. And for the research that I've done, she has great qualifications that would allow her to do the job here, and obviously in the short-term basis. She has no desire to, run for the position as a full-time person.
Can we make that a requirement?
I'm sure she would say so. Yeah, again, she'll still tell you directly.
And is she retired? Can she actually, it says in something about 2 to 3 days a week currently?
So, yeah.
Because, like, Michael was on vacation last week, and she was on vacation last week.
I know.
So who's in charge when there's no town manager and assistant town manager? I just want to make sure that doesn't happen.
Right. No, I understand. So this is the information I want to bring forth. So the goal potentially, if everyone's on board, this is why I request all the town managers the town council members to meet with her, to get to see if this is something that the council would go with. If at that meeting, once we meet with her and she's brought in front of us, if we do look to ratify her within the next meeting or two, August, definitely, again, September, the town manager is gone, so ideally we would have to ratify her for that August meeting so she could take over on September 5th to step into the role. I feel it would definitely make logical sense to use her to fill this gap until we hire a new town manager, as I don't think we need the extra task of searching for an interim town manager that will only be in place for 3 to 6 months. She is highly qualified. She's a credentialed manager with the ICMA, which is, again, one of the criteria I want to look for in the next town manager, that they have those credentials, and has run 3 towns, including Upton, Wellesley, and Norfolk. And she's had managerial roles in 8 other New England towns. So her career extends many, many years. If we look to name her interim town manager, she then herself could look to hire an interim assistant town manager to continue the work she was doing in that position. As I mentioned before, she's retired from full-time town manager work, and her current role is to fill short-term interim positions in any town or city that needs her services. I told you she's been here since March of 2023, and by the end of June 2023, she took on the role of the assistant town manager. As a retired town manager, she cannot work any more than 1,200 hours per year, meaning that as the interim town manager, she would be basically here 3 days a week with some online work. But most interim town managers that are brought on board are part-time. They're not usually full-time.
Mr. President, could I ask a question?
Go ahead.
So I believe in the charter it said we don't have, like, say something happened to the manager, you know what I mean, like he's gone or he was sick, that we could choose, we don't have to put the assistant town manager into the manager's position, we could put department head or someone else. Isn't that in our charter, so we would have options? We don't have to bring her.
You can appoint whoever you want.
As
So-
town manager right now?
Yes, so starting when his contract ends, because we're under contractual obligations, but you can fill a vacancy in that office with whomever you want. But it does say do it as soon as possible for obvious reasons. And it also says that it can only be done in 3-month increments, not to exceed 2 of those 3-month increments. So to ease some of your concerns, Mark, the contract that we would negotiate with whoever did this would be for 3 months. And it could not be for more by virtue of our charter. So there will be no permanent contract. If you hired someone from that role, so be it. But this is a interim role based on a vacancy. And the other thing, I just asked Deb, I think your first meeting in September is on the 10th, which is after Michael has left.
Correct.
So in order to ratify her, you would either have to put her on for appointment and ratification, and you all make this appointment, by the way, it's not up to the town manager.
Right.
For appointment and ratification to go into effect on the date he leaves.
Correct.
And then at that point, we could negotiate the contractual terms, which can be done in executive session. That's neither here nor there. But then if you're going to do it that way, it'll have to be on this next date. If it isn't, you're going to need to set down another meeting prior to Michael departing to make sure that we have someone in place, right? So it's either do this as an appointment and interview process at the next meeting, and then if you don't, we hold another meeting with some other candidates, but it's going to start to get real tight for us.
Right.
And I want to make sure that we are not left in a position where we don't have someone serving as town manager, right? That's important.
So, yeah, thank you very much, Attorney Rollins. So to finish...
Mr. President,
Oh,
then
yes,
I
go
would
ahead.
like the council to consider that we can put maybe someone else in that position for a while.
Well, again, let me just, I'm finishing the statement, then I'll open up for more discussion if you have
No, I
potential
just
names
wanted-
that you want to bring up or something along those
I just
lines.
would like it put out there so the town council knows that we don't have to move the assistant up. We can choose someone else.
I understand that, that's certainly
That's
an
all I
option.
wanted to
That's
know.
an option, right. But again, as a council member, if you have a particular name of someone that you want to suggest, this would be a time to bring up that name and to have a discussion. But just before I take your question, Mr. Lee, so just to finish what I was trying to say before, so if she takes the interim position at 3 days a week, and she could potentially hire an interim assistant town manager, that assistant town manager would be here 2 days a week. They could be here on opposing days, so there is 5 days of coverage of leadership for the town of Bridgewater between the two positions. So that was just, I wanted to just finish getting that information out there. So based on that, I will certainly, any questions from any counselors that you'd like to discuss. Mr.
To you,
Lindy?
to the town attorney, we can't talk any issues about the interim town manager in open session. It has to be with 48 hours' notice, correct? And the
Yeah,
person has to be able to bring a counsel if necessary.
Right. You have to be very careful if your intention is to go into anything other than her qualifications, right? That's a whole different thing. If you're going to be doing that, I would ask that someone reach out to me so that I make sure you follow the law as it relates to that. Frankly, I think your urgency right now is finding an interim town manager, and I would focus a lot more on that. And if you, I would ask her, I would encourage her, if that's who you all are talking about right now, to present information to you all in advance that you can review. I'm not going to tell you how to do your process, but if there are other people, they should be presenting information to probably you, Mr. Perry, relative to that.
Yep.
Because this doesn't seem like something that would be appropriate to do a search committee on, though you could. I just think it's going to prolong it way too far. I think this is going to have to be a quick process that happens in open session. And so I want you all to be very careful about that and make sure that you're talking about the candidate's qualifications when you're asking them questions. That's really the key. But yeah, we can certainly discuss that further if need be.
I do
by all
have,
means, just reach out.
I do have a summary that I received from her today of her qualifications, two-page kind of summary of her career. So if I don't have an online copy that I can forward to, but I can certainly reach out to her and have her send a copy to each counselor so you have that information to review.
You may want to put it on for appointment, and then if you don't appoint her, then we figure out, okay, what are we going to do next, kind of thing.
So-
I think that might help.
So that is an August 13th meeting. If we don't appoint someone at that point, we're going to have to meet another time, either obviously the August 20th or August 27th.
You're not obligated to appoint her, but
Right.
if you have it on the agenda for
But we have
that,
to appoint
and you do,
someone to
at
be
least
able
we-
to take over when Michael's done.
If I may make a point, a
Ms. Ellenberg.
suggestion? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We should ask Blythe if she would like to stay as the assistant town manager, and does she know any young people in the field that are exceptional, that could be brought in on a purely interim basis as town manager?
Well, again, with her experience, I think we better serve to have her in the role of town manager and have her bring someone in as an assistant town manager interimly to help her. To bring someone younger with less experience than she would probably not do
Well-
the town well.
No, I was thinking that she could be training that person, and that hopefully, it.
But that's not what we want in an interim position. We just want someone
Yeah.
to keep the town moving in a forward direction until we put a new town manager
Okay.
permanently
Yes.
into that
Yes,
position.
you're right.
Thank you. Any other comments from council members? Okay. So that being said, I will certainly make arrangements to have her come to our meeting on the August 13th.
Can we
and-
meet before then?
Well, again, I think what we need to do is potentially set up an additional meeting between now and August 13th to finalize what we're looking to do on the ad hoc committee with Mr. Dutton present.
He's back next week. I'm
Right.
asking for
So
a
again,
meeting.
I'm going to see when we can, either within the next week or two, before, to set up an additional meeting. Again, just got to look at the calendar and see what the best date is. And then we'll get that out, as soon as possible. But that would be the next step to finalize the ad hoc committee, and then, again, have further discussion on what we want to do for an interim town manager. If anyone has, like I said, I would encourage the councilors to go forth and set up a meeting with her. And if you do have any potential other names or directions that you think we should go in, again, this is the time to bring it up, talk about it, or, bring it up at a follow-up meeting. But so that's kind of where we're at.
I have just a question
Go ahead,
for
yes,
our
sir.
town attorney. If we were to post an interim job, I don't know the employment law, but how long would that have to be posted for?
No, you can post it whenever, because this is exempt from 30B because it's an employment contract. So this person will serve as an employee, be it an independent contractor or not. So you don't follow the formal RFP process for this, which is why you're not doing 30B for the process by which you hire a town manager, but you are doing it for the service of a search consultant. So two different things. One is your employee. The other is a service that you're bidding, you're putting out to bid. So you could do that. You certainly could do that. You could have a discussion about that posting at the next meeting. I mean, you can do it however you want to do it and then move forward in that way. But yeah,
Why would we have to wait for the next meeting?
you don't.
So in theory, if we wanted to tonight to post an interim job description, work with, I don't know, I would hesitate to say work with the HR department because I know we can't, but.
Yeah, I mean, we want to make sure that it's drafted in a proper way, but sure, you have the ability to run that process by which you select the interim town manager. So if we want to have a posting and we make sure it's made abundantly clear, which it will be, that it's subject to ratification, absolutely, you can take it.
And just so folks know on that, I did meet with Blythe today. I think she's perfectly capable. I just am not 100% comfortable with her being the only option, but also recognize we have a very tight timeline. And so
And with that,
discussion, but all of that is a factor as well.
and with that, again, I agree with you, to go that route could be another option. I just don't think we have the time frame necessary to take the steps to find someone in that situation, again, that hasn't had, any experience so far with the town. At least we're starting with someone that has had a little bit of groundwork, with the, town and the function of it as is. So the transition, would be relatively, hopefully seamless, so the town could keep on functioning as it needs to. And again, I just implore the rest of the council to go and meet her and see if you feel the same way. But again, we can go a different direction when we meet again if a majority of us feel differently. But just do the homework and meet with her and see what your thinks are.
So by not making that decision tonight, we collectively decide that we are going to make the decision to put her on the agenda and wait another 2 weeks.
I am definitely going to put her right on the August 13th agenda, so she can be introduced, and again, have all the counselors do their homework on her. So we do have at least the potential to ratify someone to take the position at that meeting. If we do not ratify her, then we're looking at other meetings to be set up to bring other candidates to the floor, and then we're going to have to ratify someone before Michael leaves. Yes, Councilor McKinney.
I would like to go forward with Council Murray's idea. Let's put it out there with the HR and see who else. I mean, we could have someone who's retired in town that is qualified. I don't think we should do just one. I mean, we got 2 weeks before we have to appoint her, so let's see who comes forward.
Do you have a name of anyone?
It doesn't matter if I have a name, we should put it out there, so, I mean, we have plenty of people in town that we don't know how qualified they are. It's only temporary, so I feel more comfortable having, I haven't met her, so this is no bias on my part, I have no idea about her, but I would like to forward with the Council Murray and have the HR and have it posted.
So how well, and this is for you all to answer, if you did that and you did post it and you took in, what does your screening process look like? Are you just going to interview every candidate that applies? Who pre-screens it? And if you're not going to, you're literally going to have to do the screening of all these candidates in open session.
Can't we do it in an executive session?
No,
Can't 8R do it?
it's not under any exemption. That's why you do less than a quorum of an ad hoc committee of the board. Open meeting law, 30A, black and white.
So would folks be open to setting an ad hoc committee of less than quorum to make this decision or to review those?
Is that back to the town manager appointing the ad hoc committee for the interim?
Yeah, I mean,
You're just opening up more and more cans of worms.
Right, a little bit.
Down that rabbit hole.
Right?
Just asking, I'm not proposing this.
No.
Let me be clear.
It's chicken and the egg a little bit, right? And unfortunately, this is the extent in which the charter weighs in on this process, right? Which is too bad, because you would like to see like a formal process, but almost no charter has that, okay? There is procedures, and maybe it was left this way, frankly, to give you all some freedom to create it, right? Create the process. However, if you're going to do it in the way that you're saying, and you really want to interview candidates, you should have a process in the same way that you're doing it with the town manager. The reason that doesn't usually happen in a normal situation is there's some expediency associated with appointing an interim, because you got to get someone in there. It is very common for the interim to be someone that has already been working there, because you're trying to move that process along, and it's a temporary role. So your couple of options are you can really do it the way you're proposing and see if Blythe is appointed. If Blythe doesn't pass muster for you all, then you come up with a procedure by which you're going to appoint someone. And then you follow that procedure, and we go through the process that we're talking about now with both the interim town manager and the town manager, and we're left with that fun predicament where the town manager's contract's up and we're figuring out some plan A and B. I will tell you, the government will not cease to exist because of that. I've been working in this town for a very long time. There are a lot of very capable department heads. It's not going to be like chaos. However, I wouldn't recommend not having a town manager in place, frankly.
Well, I think, so to answer that question, we're not bound by the charter to have a town manager in place by that time frame.
No, it just says as soon as you can.
And we do have an assistant town manager currently.
Correct.
So would
Interim,
that-
which is interim, right, which is Blythe.
To clarify, would that assistant town manager fill that gap? Is that bound by that job description?
I honestly don't know what her contract says. I didn't negotiate her contract, so I have no idea what her role or her contract says. Conceivably, there's something probably in it that says this is what you're doing. I think for all of you, it might be important for you to the public to show that you appointed the person, frankly. But I'll leave that decision up to you all. You're the politicians. I'm just the lawyer, so.
Last question, sorry.
Go ahead, right ahead.
If we were to post a job description, do we have to act on that? So in order to save time, if we were to post a job description for next day or so.
Well, the problem is how do we screen the candidates?
Right.
Right?
Do we need to determine that now?
Yeah, I think we need to figure out what the process is. So if you're going to post it, right? HR is under the purview in our administrative code of the town manager. You all are the body that's responsible for this hiring, not the town manager,
right?
Not HR, you. So I would be very careful from your perspective if you're going to do that, kind of mixing roles in that way. I think that's why you create a preliminary screening committee so that you maintain authority over your own hiring process, right? So I would just be careful doing that. That's all. I think it could get very convoluted. I think we could see some weird intersection of the charter with that, because under the admin code, the town manager is in charge of HR, right? You all need to hire the interim town manager and the town manager really without any of that. It's your decision, right? You nine. So I'd just be careful intermixing all that. That's all.
Right.
I think we could maybe pull it off and you could come back and we could create a policy of some sort. But I would just be careful. So I think if you are going to put it out to candidates, I would strongly recommend you do a preliminary screening ad hoc committee, just like we're talking about, and you do it for both the interim and you do it for the town manager, and you have a uniform process which you follow all along the way. Unless you're going to interview an employee that's already employed by the town that you feel can fill that role.
And that was what my point was going to be back to you, Counselor, was I don't think we have the time frame to go through that. And if we bring Blythe in and do not appoint her, then I think we're looking at another employee of the town, department head of another department that, we would have to appoint and put in that place as well. Someone who's already existing with the town and has knowledge of the town.
So we sort of have three options then, based on what you said. We could post a job description and go that route. We can wait for Blythe appointment in 2 weeks. And then if that doesn't work out, we can potentially appoint somebody.
I just don't think we have the mechanisms in place to post a job description from someone outside, in a job description format, because again, we don't have, the people, in place to screen, to receive those, again, whether we get 20 or 30 or 50, who knows? But I just don't think we've got the resources in place as a council to go through that process in this short a period of time.
Yeah, likely what would happen is your council clerk would collect things. I would have to work with you all to organize that. But it still would have to be under your process.
Right.
Right. Your council clerk and me are the only ones that are removed from that other stuff. So it's still, but you will have to direct that process, right?
Right. And I just think, again, it's going to be a very laborious process. But go ahead, Councilor Chase.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think what the primary takeaway from tonight is that we have a boatload of work ahead of us.
Yes, we do.
Mm-hmm. And from the standpoint of expediency, I think we're in a very beneficial position that we have an interim person in place now, acting in the role, who, in my understanding, is eminently qualified on an interim basis, certainly, to fill that position. I don't think, and really to echo your comment, I don't think that we have the bandwidth to be taking on the interview process for two persons conducted by two different committees at this point. My inclination would be that we plan on our discussion on the 13th with Blythe Robinson and make our judgment at that point.
Thank you, Mr. Chase. Oh, yes.
Susie first.
Ms. Robinson.
Thank you. And just to confirm, if she is ratified to become the interim town manager, it would be her sole decision of who would be an interim assistant town manager.
That would be her.
Thank you.
That would be her
I
hire
don't
to
see
make.
anywhere in the charter where that position's actually ratified in any way, so.
Yeah, that would be her position to make.
Thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up on that, Jason?
Hold on
I'm
a second.
sorry.
Yeah, Mr.
On that
Levine.
question.
So August 13th is 4 weeks away, okay? I asked earlier about a meeting next week, maybe it can't happen, but the 6th, I don't want to wait till August 13th. I think we need to do this, like I said, I don't care
Well, if we do it
every week.
So you're thinking you would like to see Blythe come and see us sooner than August 13th?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, okay. Well,
Absolutely.
that's fine. If we set up a meeting between now and the 13th, we can certainly bump up that timeline.
How
I don't
about
see that
next
being a
week?
problem. I'll approach the town manager when he's back from vacation and see if we can get something in, but I gotta work with, we got timelines in place to get something set on up there posted, so, we'll work on this the rest of this week and see what, it's either gonna be next week or the week after. It's definitely gonna be one of the next 2 weeks. Ms. Driggles?
I would definitely agree that it needs to be before the 13th, given we will be discussing other large-scale topics on the 13th. So I don't want to distract from that. It might be better to, both topics are equally important to the town.
Sure.
So I do think that maybe setting them up a week apart does make more sense. I think next week might be a little premature. Let's let all of us meet her and digest
No,
things.
and again, I would definitely think that would be a very important piece of the puzzle to everyone trying, within the next week, meet, and then, so what was, after next week, what's the meeting date
The
after that?
6th.
The 6th, so that's still, what, 2 weeks before the other meeting? Oh, no, that's the
week before
the week before the August meeting. I still think that would be appropriate. We'll keep the regular August meeting, because we already have a agenda in place for that. But the week before would be good. If we move to ratify her at that particular meeting, then we'd be set. If we don't ratify her, then we still have a chance to bring someone else forward on the 13th to potentially ratify that candidate. So it gives us some time without having to add another meeting after that. But if we have to, we have to. But I like that idea, Mr. Eagles. Any other comments?
Ask my follow-up question.
Oh, please, I'm sorry, yes.
I think Councilor Robinson asked if this person would be able to hire an interim assistant town manager, and this person could actually hire a permanent assistant town manager, correct?
I mean, technically, but they usually, I think the way that role works, it's not an at-will employee. I think it's usually contractual.
Yeah.
So there's a limitation on time, but yeah, it could be, technically, they could hire someone for some amount of time.
Right. And what
under a contract.
Yeah.
Whether or not there's funds that you all still need to appropriate. And so at the end of the day, with stuff like that, you still hold the purse strings, right? So depending on how much the salary would be or who would get it, you still have, if you were asked to appropriate, that's where you have some purview over that. But technically speaking, yes, the interim town manager could hire an employee under a contract so long as it doesn't exceed the time period required by law.
So the only point I'd say to that as well, Paul, is if she were to hire someone, I would say that I would like to see it also as an interim position, because as we hire a new town manager, the attractiveness of them being able to hire their own assistant town manager going forward, I think would be very attractive
I agree,
as well
but
to
we
the
don't have a
position.
say in that, correct?
No, the new town manager coming in would hire their own assistant town manager at that point. But if we have the interim town manager hire an assistant town manager also on an interim basis, again, that contract to be determined.
Yeah, but you don't get to dictate that.
No, but again, that would be one of the discussions that we could have with her.
You would hope that doesn't happen, but
It's not her. I mean, it's anybody that ends up in that
Right.
position, right?
Right, it just under the charter, you have no purview over the employment
We
of
could, let her
people in the town,
know what
so.
we would like to see.
Right.
Go ahead, Mr. Lynn.
So, through you to the town attorney, do we have the authority in terms of hiring the interim town manager to direct that that person make no major changes in the town?
No. Because she's serving, or he's serving, as town manager. So it's the same limitations you have as a council. There is nothing in our charter that says they have less authority than a regular town manager. They're just given only 3-month increments.
So that person could make a major change, and we have no authority over it whatsoever?
Depends on what the major change is. I mean, if it requires an appropriation, then absolutely not without your consent, right? Or if it requires a ratification. So some department heads can only get appointed after you all ratify those department heads. So there are certain things that are limited, but yeah, I mean, and that is something to consider. I understand that. I think maybe that's part of you getting a sense from whoever's interviewing whether or not that's what their approach will be. Right? You're certainly entitled to ask someone what their approach would be.
Okay.
Because you're still their boss, right? So.
I would just add, in most cases, those interim coming in, they're not looking to make a lot of waves. They're just trying to keep, the town going in a positive direction until the full-time person's in place.
I will tell you, in the past, the way it worked, we did have, they were hired as a town manager, but for all intents and purposes, they were an interim town manager. They were at the time of, we had our first town manager, then we had a period of what could be considered an interim, though they were, I believe, technically a town manager. And it was very much about just steadying a ship as opposed to, charting paths. That said, I can't speak for whoever you interview, and you're gonna have to figure that out.
Those questions.
Yep. Thank you.
Ms. McGrath.
Thank you, Mr. President. So it's in the charter that the town manager hires the assistant manager. We couldn't change her contract to say that
No, it's not that the town manager hires the assistant town manager in the charter. It's that the town manager makes all determinations of employment. So employment is an area other than the town manager that the town council cannot touch by way of charter.
even if she's just temporarily, she can still do it.
Yeah.
She has those powers.
Town manager can hire whoever they want. Your only recourse in that context is to hold it against the town manager when they come back up for appointment or contract negotiations.
So now when she comes and we're going to discuss whether we appoint her or not, at that time, could I bring up a town department head that I would like to recommend for the job?
I would do that beforehand. I mean, I think that's a conversation for setting the agenda that you really need to have with the council president. I don't get to set the agenda. I have no influence over it at all. So you need to discuss, if you are looking to appoint someone to a similar position, I would probably have all of those people lined up to have interviews, and you take some votes.
So I would ask him to put it on the agenda. Okay, thank you.
If that's someone you're proposing for an appointment of a position, sure. Okay.
Very good. Any other council comments on that situation?
Just one more question.
Mr. Lindy.
That interim town manager could also fire somebody that's in place.
Yes, but there's a lot of factors that go into firing someone first.
Just asking.
But it depends on the collective bargaining agreement that particular employee is under. It depends on if that employee is not part of a collective bargaining unit, what their actual contract with the town is. I mean, I could go through 1,000 hypotheticals that have happened over my time doing this, so I don't even want to go down any of those paths, but for cause, if there's cause to fire someone, you can fire someone.
I guess the specific question would be if a department head comes forward that wants to apply for the assistant town manager job, doesn't get it, we appoint that person, could that person then fire the other person? Because we might not get anyone to step up to the plate if there is a department head
If
that might
there's,
want to apply.
if there's cause. It's the best I can tell you.
Okay.
Because there's so
Okay.
many like,
Right.
I don't
Okay.
even want to.
Okay.
You can only fire someone who's under a contract for a cause, and/or you have to fire someone under the provisions of a collective bargaining agreement. In our town, many employees are under a collective bargaining agreement of some sort.
Are the department heads?
Most department heads are not. Most department heads are non-union. So they are under, most are under contracts though.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
I don't know all of them.
Thank
but
you.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you the specifics because I don't run that, but.
All right. So that being said, any further questions on anything or comments? Because what I think we'll do is we'll wrap up tonight's discussion. My goal, number one, will be to set up an additional meeting between now and the August 13th meeting, more likely August 6th, where we can go back and Mr. Dutton will be here. We can go over the specifics of the preliminary screening ad hoc committee. We would look to see if we could have at least Blythe Robinson here for her introduction and questions. If there are any potential other candidates, any counselors have in mind, and you want to reach out to me to let me know about who you're thinking about, then we can see if we can get them on the agenda as well. But I think that next meeting, those are the two major things that we want to get accomplished, and that'll set us up for the August 13th meeting.
Quick question
Yes.
through you to the town council. I'm an open, public, transparent person, but can we talk about any of this at all in executive session? Under the
Any
10
of-
criteria
any of
for
what?
executive session?
Any of what?
This whole process?
So you're saying like the employment process, and if you have a quorum of the body politic, are you asking if that process of hiring someone without a preliminary screening committee, and you have a quorum?
Specifically, the interim town manager.
No, unless you have a preliminary screening committee that is less than a quorum. It has to be talked about in open session.
I would think the substance of the person is different than procedure, and discussing procedure alone should not be a problem in an executive session.
It doesn't fall under any exemption. So that's why it's a problem. It's not transparent to the public. The point of the open meeting law is so that the public
course.
hears you have that discussion. That is the exact opposite of transparency when you're talking about something that doesn't fall under one of the exceptions to the open meeting law.
Right. We have to discuss the substance of the employee in open session, according to the open meeting law, according to you. But procedure, how we determine how the committee is going to be set up, things of that nature.
Yeah.
And the process.
That's
I would
still a
think
public-
that would be fine.
It isn't. It doesn't fall under any exception.
Mr. Rollins, I think basically the only thing that we would go into executive session over is to go over contracts for the people that
Yeah,
we're
like
looking
if
to hire.
it would impact us as a bargaining unit, that's when you start to, in the employment context, unless you do a preliminary screening committee, the only thing that would remain is once you've decided on a town manager or interim town manager, we could go into executive session to discuss the contract.
Correct.
Because we're negotiating, and it would put you as a body in jeopardy for those negotiations if we did it in public, obviously.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Rollins. So that being said, that's what I think our next goals are for the next meeting. Does anyone else have any parting comments on tonight or what we're doing to going forward? Because again, I'll make note that unfortunately we did not put council comments at the end of this particular agenda. So if you have any final comments on what we discussed tonight, I'd probably ask for you to talk about it now. We'll go to citizens' comments again after we're done with the discussion and then move to adjourn. So any other final parting comments? Going once, going twice. All right. So with that, I will move on to closing citizens' comments. If anyone would like to come up and speak, I would encourage you to do so. Again, due to Massachusetts open meeting law requirements, discussions will not take place during the public comment period. If appropriate, responses to questions and concerns will be given by the town manager at a future town council meeting. Hi, Jean.
Okay. Jean DiBattista, 260 Lakeside Drive. This discussion has been very interesting. I agree with Councilor Perry and with many of you that the interim process should be kept as simple as possible in order to make sure that we have somebody in place to perform practical duties in the interim. And what I'm hearing from what's been discussed about the main candidate is she sounds like she has the best experience for the job since she's already been in it, or at least assisting it. But I don't know her at all, but it seems to me that makes logical sense, and the focus should be on the permanent candidate. The second thing that I had a question about is I've listened to the town attorney and all of you relating to the need for confidentiality for candidates, which I 100% agree with. If I was a candidate, which I definitely will not be, but if I was, I would want my confidentiality ensured because I might be employed elsewhere. But the one thing, being a creative individual, that I did think about is I'm wondering if you can have more than one employment subcommittee made up of 4 counselors so that you could interview candidates using more counselors, since that seems to be the desire of the council, but still not have more than 4 people in that process. He's saying no, but that was something to consider. That's, my creative side talking. But anyway, that is all I have to say, and I now have the answer to that question. So thank all of you. You're doing great work, and I'm looking forward to being part of this process.
Thank you, Jean. Anybody else like to come up, please?
Ed Ivaldi, Boxwood Lane. Yeah, just a few comments. I realize that this is the first time that you all have been through this, so there's a lot of questions. I guess one of my expectations was tonight that you would develop a plan. And that plan would have a bunch of tasks that need to be accomplished between now and some date. So hopefully you have a plan, or you will have a plan by the next meeting on things that you're going to vote on, because it seems like there are still some things like, do you need to hire a search firm? It sounds like maybe some people think that, some people don't, but that's just one thing as a group you're going to need to vote on. But there's a bunch of other things. So for the next meeting, I would recommend having a plan, a documented plan that you can even share with the public, that we can see and that we can see what you're doing. Just as an informational point, we've been through this two times as a town now. The last time, as Tim had mentioned earlier, he was on the committee. There were 4 counselors that were on that. And we also used the Collins Center at UMass Boston. They were integral to that process in researching candidates for us, screening candidates for us. So maybe that's something we can also reach out to them, or maybe even BSU. I don't know if they will help us do any of that work behind the scenes. The first time we did it, back in 2009, we actually had a search committee of 5 citizens, and the chairman of the Board of Selectmen was on it as well. So we had 5 citizens that were on that committee. There were no issues then. So maybe that, I don't know why, but it worked. As far as the interim, I do like the idea of having other candidates to look at. I understand there's a time constraint, but you can call the MMA tomorrow, and you can ask them how many retired town managers that have worked under council manager are available. Maybe there are none, but maybe you'll find 5 or 6 that you might want to talk to. And it's just getting on the phone and talking with people. So by the 13th, you should know whether or not you have other options outside of Bridgewater. And maybe assign, as council president, you can assign tasks to council members to do things. You don't have to do it all yourself. You can delegate. So maybe that's what you should consider doing. And also on Blythe, I just think you need to do more due diligence. You've got a resume, you've got experience, but you need to do other due diligence, check references and other things like that. So anyways, thank you for your service. It was a good meeting.
Thank you, Ed. Anybody else? Please, come on up.
MJ Spagone, 5 Lakeshore Center, Unit 1128. Listening to this meeting this evening has certainly been eye-opening. I will say, first and foremost, I don't envy your position right now, just based upon the conversations that you folks have had this evening. But echoing what Mr. Evaldi said, based upon the processes, refer back to the history. Refer back to the history that allowed the town to obtain the previous 2 town managers. You do not need to reinvent the wheel. Make it simple. Don't overthink it. Work through the procedure. Have a procedure in place. Implement that procedure. And stick to that procedure. The last thing you need to do as a council is get bogged down in minutiae. And as a public servant myself, I can tell you right now, the enemy of any operating government, municipal, state, or federal, is minutia. Stick to the plan, refer back to your history, use what worked, don't reinvent the wheel. If it worked 10 times before and it was a solid process, stick with it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Anybody else? Going once, going twice. Very good. Thank you all for your comments once again. I will now ask for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming.